Last Thanksgiving, I got invited to dinner by my Japanese friend Kenji. I walked in expecting a big, juicy turkey, but Kenji's eyes were sparkling as he told me he'd prepared a very special main dish. But what landed on the table was a headless, transparent squid sitting politely on top of a bowl of white rice. Honestly, the visual kind of freaked me out, but hey, I've had Japanese rice bowls before. I was instinctively looking for stuffing or gravy, but Kenji just handed me a bottle of soy sauce, thinking, oh, I guess I pour this on top. I drizzled the soy sauce over the squid, and at that exact moment, oh my God, what the thing started dancing right there in my bowl. Yep, it was the legendary dancing squid bowl I'd only heard rumors about. I did end up eating it, but was it good? Well, I was too busy wrestling a squid inside my mouth to remember any flavor. That night, back at home, I started thinking. To Kenji, that wriggling squid was a symbol of freshness, but to an American like me, it was basically a horror movie. Come to think of it, we Westerners are surprisingly cowardly when it comes to seafood. The UK, Spain, Italy, names that sound like they should smell like the ocean, but if you look at their dinner tables, seafood is pushed to the corner. At best, it's fried or grilled. Eating something alive like I did, that's unimaginable. On the other hand, look at Japan on the far east of Asia. To them, the ocean is literally a refrigerator. They eat it raw, dried, and they even make seaweed, which we used to treat as a weed, the star of the meal. We share the same oceans, so why are our dinner tables complete opposites? From me freaking out over a dancing squid, to us Westerners who clearly love meat more than fish, here is the mystery we're solving today. Why can't Europeans and us Americans enjoy fish the way Asians do? Let's find out with Flat Archive. Let's start by cracking open the statistics. Finding fish on a European dinner table is harder than you might think. Data from EU MOFA, the EU's seafood statistical agency, reveals something pretty shocking. About 44% of all seafood consumed by Europeans is focused on just 5 types of fish: tuna, salmon, shrimp, cod, and pollock, each taking up about 7%. Add a little bit of herring, sardines, squid, mussels, and bream, and that's basically it. They barely touch anything else. Considering how diverse ocean life is, isn't it crazy that they only eat enough species to count on one hand? Honestly, our American tables aren't much different. It's usually just fish and chips or a salmon steak, right? But compare the continents, and the gap gets even wider. According to the FAO, about 2/3 of the world's seafood is consumed in Asia. Even accounting for population size, Asia's seafood consumption is overwhelming. China, Japan, and Korea alone account for nearly half of that consumption. Basically, the entire Western world, Europe, North America, and Oceania combined, eats way less fish than just Asia alone. With such rich coastlines, why have Western dinner tables become so simple? The answer hides in unavoidable environmental and historical circumstances. The first thing we need to look at is the ocean itself. The North Atlantic of Europe was, from the start, incredibly hostile to humans. It was literally a hellish sea, notorious for being rough and freezing. The average winter waves exceed 5 meters, and during storms they tower over 20 meters. That's as high as a 7 or 8-story building. Winds scream past 60 kilometers per hour, and the water drops to terrifying depths just off the coast, making it nearly impossible to dock a ship. Of course, deep in these frigid waters, massive schools of cod and herring do exist, but catching them was only possible after the Industrial Revolution brought us steamships and freezers. Before that, not a chance. Trying to punch through those waves in a medieval wooden rowboat? That wasn't fishing, that was a suicide mission. In places like Iceland or Norway, it was common for every single man in a village to head out to sea and never return. You might be thinking, wait, didn't the Vikings cross the Atlantic just fine? True, their longships were crossing the ocean as early as the 9th century. But those were for raiding and warfare, not for hauling tons of fish back home. The purpose was completely different. Ultimately, this environment shaped Europe's food culture. Seafood was a resource you risked your life for, while the land was safe. So raising livestock was simply the more rational choice. The fear of the North Atlantic. That is the first reason we distanced ourselves from fish. So what about the South? The Mediterranean is warm and calm, right? You're right. But there's another problem here. It looks peaceful on the surface, but underwater it's an environment where life struggles to survive. The Mediterranean is essentially a closed sea. Its only opening to the Atlantic is the Strait of Gibraltar, which is barely 14 kilometers wide. Since the water doesn't circulate well, oxygen and nutrients can't spread. Plus, there are hardly any major rivers flowing into it. Aside from France's Rhone and Italy's Po, most rivers are too short and steep to carry enough nutrients down. No nutrients means no plankton, which naturally means no fish. To make matters worse, it's hot and dry, so evaporation makes the salinity incredibly high. And high water temperature means less oxygen, making it hard for big fish to breathe. That's why you only find small creatures like anchovies, sardines, and squid there. In short, the Mediterranean is basically a giant, pretty saltwater pool. The reason Europeans couldn't enjoy diverse seafood? The North was too scary to enter, and the South was too empty to bother. Third reason is geographical, the existence of mudflats where land meets sea. Europe's oceans have almost no mudflats. With short rivers and steep coastlines, low tide just reveals cliffs or sandy beaches. But look at East Asia. They have massive buffer zones between land and sea, the mudflats. Mudflats aren't just muddy fields. They are seafood incubators and food factories where nutrients pile up and tides supply oxygen, allowing clams, crabs, shrimp, and small fish to thrive. The food chain that starts here enriches the entire ocean. Places like Korea's west coast or China's shores are shallow and rich in mudflats, forming natural fisheries. This environment is exactly why Asians can enjoy such diverse seafood. On the other hand, Europe's waves are too strong for mud to settle, leading to a simple ecosystem. There is the Wadden Sea near Germany, but it's too small to significantly impact human food sources. But if we turn our eyes from the sea to the land, this might be the real reason. Let's be honest, for Europe and us Americans, the land was just too good to bother risking our lives at sea. Europe is a classic continental civilization. Most people live deep inland, and without refrigeration, dragging fresh fish all the way there was impossible. Naturally, meat, milk, and cheese from farming became the staples. Even today, look at Central or Eastern European diets. It's overwhelmingly meat-heavy, right? Humans instinctively love meat. It's a superfood packed with protein, fat, and iron, plus it's easy to cook and keeps you full. Anthropologically speaking, studies suggest that eating meat is what grew the brains of our ancestor, Homo erectus. We evolved to love meat because it helped us survive. But in Asia, especially countries like Korea or Japan, mountains are everywhere and farmland is scarce, making meat a luxury. So for survival, they had no choice but to turn to the sea, building cities along the coast and making fish their staple. On the other hand, look at the plains of Europe, the Great Plains of America, the Pampas of South America. Why would people living on such fertile land, where meat practically grows on grass, bother going to sea? The reason countries like the US, Argentina, and Australia eat less seafood today isn't because we lack oceans, but because our land was already rich enough. There's also a pretty scientific reason hiding here. The decisive reason Europeans hate fish, the fishy smell. And here's the thing, European fish actually do smell worse. Fish living in the freezing, salty North Atlantic produce an antifreeze-like substance to protect their cells. That substance is called TMAO, trimethylamine N-oxide. The problem is, when the fish dies, this substance breaks down and releases that terrible stench we all know. In Asian seas have warm currents. The fish there don't need to produce as much of that substance, so they smell much less and have a cleaner taste. That is exactly why Asians can enjoy eating fish raw. Before fridges, who would have liked European fish that stank the moment it was caught? That's why European fish recipes are all about drowning it in lemon, salting it to death, or smoking it, basically doing anything to mask the smell. The goal wasn't to enjoy the flavor, but to eliminate the odor. The final nail in the coffin was history and religion. Europeans really started eating fish during the Catholic Middle Ages, not for gastronomy, but out of duty. Catholicism had meat-free days. Every Friday or during Lent, meat was forbidden because it symbolized blood and carnal desire. So people were like, ugh, no meat today. Guess we have to eat fish for protein. Fish was just a backup plan for meat, not a joy. Since the mindset was, what can I eat instead of meat, they didn't bother trying to make it delicious. As long as it didn't stink, it was fine. That tradition stuck, which is why we feast on meat for Christmas, but eat fish and chips on Fridays. Plus, there was the class issue. Fresh game meat was a privilege of the nobility and a symbol of wealth. Meanwhile, the poor commoners never saw fresh fish. They had to chew on rock-hard, salted fish. Over hundreds of years, this branded fish in the Western subconscious as stinky food for poor people. And that cultural memory still influences our eating habits today. Let's wrap this up. Europe's seas were either too rough or too empty, there were no mud flats, and the land was simply too fertile. Add religion and class history to the mix, and fish never became the star of the table, remaining a symbol of restraint and poverty. On the other hand, Asia's seas were warm, shallow, and fertile. Rivers breathed life into the ocean with rich soil, and they brought that bounty of the sea straight to their tables. In the end, we chose the bounty of the land, while they chose the bounty of the sea. That's why in the West, fish is treated as a side dish next to a steak, while in Asia, it's an indispensable main course. Of course, nowadays we seek out seafood for health and love sushi, but the roots of food culture, formed over thousands of years of adaptation, run deeper and stronger than we think. My shock at seeing the dancing squid bowl at Kenji's house, maybe that was just the memory of a land person etched into my DNA kicking in. So what's on your plate tonight? Is it the taste of the land or the taste of the sea? This has been Flat Archive.